Padre Pio was one of the greatest saints of our time, with many spiritual gifts, but he is best known for his stigmata. He was born Francesco Forgione on May 25, 1887, in the small Italian village of Pietrelcina. He was raised in a poor but devout Roman Catholic family. Francesco was very pious and prayerful and had a unique talent from an early age. He talked to Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary as a young boy. He saw his guardian angel and was attacked by the devil. It happened so frequently that Francesco assumed that everyone else could see them too. When he was 5, he knew he wanted to become a priest. Francesco was often sick. He got gastroenteritis when he was 6 and typhoid fever when he was 10. When he was 16 years old, he entered the Capuchin novitiate in honor of Pope Pius I, whose relic he frequently saw in his local chapel. He chose the name Pio, the modern Italian version of Pius. Eventually, he became a priest in 1910 and became Padre Pio, and in that year, he received the first sign of stigmata in his hands and feet, even though it wasn't visible then. We call this invisible stigmata. He told his spiritual director about what had happened in a letter. In the center of my hands, a red spot appeared, about the size of a coin, and with it an intense pain in the soles of my feet. Later in 1918, Padre Pio received the visible signs of Christ's wounds. After celebrating the Mass, Padre Pio had a vision in which he saw Jesus Christ as if he were on the cross. Jesus was suffering. Our Lord said to Padre Pio, "I unite you to my passion." And immediately the vision disappeared and Padre Pio became aware that his hands, feet and side were dripping blood. When Padre Pio received the stigmata, he wrote to his spiritual director, Father Benedetto, "Dear Father, I am dying of pain because of the wounds and the resulting embarrassment I feel deep in my soul. I am afraid I shall bleed to death if the Lord does not hear my heartfelt supplication to relieve me of this condition." Padre Pio suffered in body and soul. The friar wanted to hide his stigmata and often prayed that God would allow him to suffer invisibly. He wore gloves and close shoes to cover his stigmata. The stigmatists tried to stop the bleeding by treating them with iodine, but Padre Pio's wounds did not heal or close up. But there was no festering. His stigmata had perfume-like scents. Padre Pio even received the secret wound of our Lord that was not recorded by man, the laceration our Lord suffered on his shoulder. This wound was brought on by bearing the cross, which we know about because Jesus revealed to Saint Bernard of Clairvaux that his shoulder wound was the worst of all his injuries. Padre Pio kept this wound hidden. Only the future Pope John Paul II knew about it. Only after Padre Pio's death were the bloodstains found on his undershirt near the shoulder blade on the right shoulder. The stain was 4 inches, similar to the bloodstain on the Shroud of Turin. Even though Padre Pio wanted to hide his stigmata, he became famous and many people flocked to visit him. But some ill-wishers claim Padre Pio used carbolic acid to create the scars. The church was starting to worry that he was too popular, and the Vatican began to limit Padre Pio's activities to reduce public interaction. The church launched multiple investigations and Padre Pio was banned from celebrating Mass publicly, blessing people, answering letters, showing his stigmata, and communicating with Padre Benedetto, his spiritual director. But Padre Pio obeyed the church at any cost. After studying Padre Pio and his stigmata, even the most skeptical atheist doctors found them authentic. The Vatican started to change its attitude toward Padre Pio and eventually was allowed to return to his public priestly ministry. For over 50 years, Padre Pio bore the physical and emotional pain of the stigmata, but after he died, they disappeared. When a person receives the stigmatist participates in Jesus' passion and gets the same wounds that Jesus Christ had. Different saints have received them. Scholars believe that St. Paul was talking about his stigmata when he said, "Henceforth let no man trouble me, for I bear on my body the marks of Jesus." St. Francis of Assisi's stigmata were the first recorded ones. But there are other saints too who received it. For example, St. Catherine of Siena, St. Faustina Kowalska and St. Rita. More than 60 stigmatized were deemed saints or blessed by the Roman Catholic Church. St. Padre Pio not only received the stigmata, but also experienced many other supernatural phenomena throughout his life, such as levitation, bilocation, and the reading in people's souls. He heard confessions devotions for 12 hours a day and knew the right words to say to a sinner. Padre Pio often revealed events that his amazed confessor chose to remain silent about or had forgotten. In 1947, he prophesied to Karol Wojtyla that he would become a pope. He even knew his own dying day. He died on September 23, 1968, when he was 81. Padre Pio invited his superior to his room so that he could confess and reaffirm his commitment to poverty, chastity, and obedience. He prayed the rosary quietly when Padre Pio had seen two mothers in the moments before his death. These are considered the Blessed Mother and his own mother on earth. They say heart attack was the cause of his death and his stigmata wounds disappeared as soon as he died. Years after his passing, his body has remained incorrupt. Over 500,000 people gathered in St. Peter's Square to hear Pope John Paul II declare Padre Pio the Saint of Pietrelcina.